Welcome to the Pedestrian Podcast once more. Myself, Stuart Court, is here as ever with Mr. Adam Nathan. How are we, sir?
I'm good. A strange recording time for us, but I think more than worth it for the reason that we're chopping it up at this time today.
Yeah, this week we have a special guest. His first career catch was courtesy of Tim Tebow, and he's a man who's been a Chippewa, a Jet, a 49er, a Lion, and since 2019, a Seahawk, linebacker, fullback, special teams captain, and core member of the Seahawks special teams. And also this year, he delved into being a chat show host over on social media and YouTube as well. Delighted to welcome Seahawk Nick Bellore to the Pedestrian Podcast. How are we, sir?
Guys, thanks for having me on. I know it's tough. You guys normally nap at 4 p.m. over there. I'm glad I could squeeze in the schedule here, and glad to be on.
Yeah, Adam, do you want to off with the food?
We always try and start with the most serious question because, we got to set the stall out properly. And I was doing some research on you, and I saw a tweet that you made from a place called O'Kelly's, a restaurant, which seemingly in your college town, right? This is serious stuff now.
Right.
And they have a Nick Bellore burger. Do you remember the toppings on this burger? And I'm going to give you the chance to change it because I think we can improve on this.
I know it can be improved because this was put in after I left campus. And I don't think there's anything from what I remember on it that I would personally order on a burger, if I remember correctly, because I think some of my boys that were still there after I left were like, oh, they named a burger after you. And that's obviously the pinnacle of that is my crowning achievement. So I was excited, but then I was a little distraught. I was like, first of all, I'd look like a fucking tool if I actually ordered the thing at the place. They would have no idea who I am anyway, so they'd be like, oh, whatever. But if anyone caught me, that would be embarrassing. But I think it was there was like blue cheese, something else.
Blue cheese, sauteed mushrooms, lettuce, and tomato. I think it's disrespectful to a 10-year NFL veteran, to be honest.
Yeah, I feel like I should. You
should go Larry David on them and try and change the name of your own sandwich, I think.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Larry wouldn't have that. I try to kind of model my life after him. So it's. I think I don't know what I would do on mine. I would definitely take pretty much everything off. I don't need the lettuce and tomato on there. I know could be unpopular, but I don't like having a salad with my burger. So it would probably be like. I don't know what I would put on it. Maybe bacon, a fried egg, maybe. I don't mind the mushrooms, but besides that, I'm probably, wiping it clean there. So,
yeah, I think that's more than acceptable. I'm pleased that that I was a bit worried that it was going to crushing your favorite things, say with blue cheese and mushrooms. So I'm pretty pleased.
I was a little distraught when I first saw it. So I'm like, that would be nothing that I would ever even consider. But I wasn't consulted at all on that. But it was nice to have it nonetheless. But I was like, it's not exactly what I would go for.
Yeah, I think it was Doug tweeted that he sprays butter on his Pop-Tarts. I think that's the first thing that come, which is just I don't understand that one either. Biggest revelation from that is for our listeners that we actually do research for these podcasts. So that's clearly the esteem we hold you in when you come on, when you say you want to come on, Nick. But doing all that, I found a video of an interview with your parents before one of the Packers games. He said that you played on the first football team at your high school. That seems like a bit of a strange thing, just to come to school one day and there's a football team and a football field on the campus.
I don't know where my dad came up with that. He must have been drinking all day, but I surely was not the first. But it was kind of, I remember them doing that, and I think he was talking about my first NFL touchdown. And I don't know if you saw this, but it's kind of funny. I kind of like hinted at the fact that I might catch a ball around the goal line in that game. And it was a random away game that he came to. So he was like filming. I don't know why he needed to film it. Like there wouldn't be footage of it, but you know how people operate with that stuff. So he's filming it. And right as I kind of run to the pylon, he drops the phone. So it was literally like just the bottom of the seat. And, like went into his beer basically, but it kind of makes for a better video anyways. It's better to send that one than to like just show footage of me catching a ball like everyone can see on whatever. But yeah, no, that was actually a funny little story because he was so excited to get the footage of it. I'm like, Dad, there's plenty of cameras here. You just watch the fucking thing.
Yeah, your dad also said that you're someone who puts everything into what he does. Is that something that's really come to the fore and helped you go from an undrafted guy to someone having a 10, 11, soon to be a 12-year NFL career?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. It is what I do. And it's something that I realize that I'm not exactly, I mean, if you look at my mom or dad, you could probably, it wasn't exactly easy for me to get here, and I had to, work at it and continually do. No offense to them, but my dad was a golfer. My mom kind of was a marathon runner. So it wasn't like we were a big football family by any means, but it was, it's something that, I just don't know any other way because I knew that it was going to be kind of tough getting into the league undrafted. And then, the league being what it is, every year I'm going to have to kind of prove myself. And some years, every year you feel like you're going to get cut. And I think that's ultimately, it doesn't always make your life enjoyable in the moment, but, I think it's what ultimately kind of continues to keep me going and keep me playing because I still enjoy it. And, even though I'm like the old crabby guy now, but I still, have fun and feel like I can semi-relate with the young guys, or at least they pretend like I can. So I feel like I'm still kind of part of the crew.
So on that, KJ Wright was on the radio in Seattle last week, and he was saying that, Pete Carroll just sat him down one day and said, we haven't got a role for you anymore in the team. And this is like a 10-year guaranteed Ring of Honor guy. I'm sure there's probably 500 to 1,000 KJ Wright jerseys at every home game.
Right.
You have to live through this every year. And there's so much shit that goes on in the offseason. I mean, for some people, the offseason is their season, right. With the drama and the draft and the free agency. Do you get to a stage where you can just fuck it? Like, we'll just take it as it comes. And has that got easier as you've done more years and got a bit older?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's gotten easier, or at least I pretend like it does. But, every year, I mean, it's funny because you get the same questions. It's like, yes, I've, had good years and been playing well, blah, 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 blah. But I'll always have buddies be like, oh, are you excited for the draft? I'm like, fuck no, I'm not excited for the draft. Why would I be excited for the draft? And it's like, you try to paint the picture to them. It's like, well, if you had a job and then, you just see guys lining up to interview for your job every year, it's not like a super enjoyable thing. I mean, I don't, and also it's like, I think some guys get too wrapped up in kind of what's going on. I think if everyone kind of worries about like what they're doing to make the team better, everything gets better. It's like, I have no control over who's going to get drafted or who's going to get traded or who we're going to trade for. And ultimately it doesn't really matter. All that matters is I'm preparing myself to be as good as I can be for the team when the season comes. And it sounds like kind of a cliche thing, but it's like, obviously I have a part on the team. It's not a massive, massive, massive role, but me doing what I do the best I can do is the only thing I can do to help the team. And me worrying about which, whatever position we draft is meaningless. And luckily there's not a lot of fullbacks that get drafted. So that's nice because I don't have to, it's kind of a niche thing. So I don't have to worry about that too much. And then you're like, a guy that plays linebacker and fullback. It's like, okay, that's even a little bit smaller group, and then plays special teams. I'm like, okay. So that helps a little bit being kind of almost like an obsolete position guy because, you don't, if they draft one, then you're really fucked because you're like, you get a guy in there that really knows what he's doing at either one of those positions, and I'm screwed. But it's always it's kind of fun now that I'm older to look at it from like the outside. Like I'm not on the outside, but just I don't care. Like whatever happens is going to happen, and you realize you don't have control over that stuff. And I've been at places where guys have gotten drafted at my position, and it's like, well, you do get like this thing that kind of kicks on where you start to see red, and you're like, all right, this is, if I want to keep this thing going, I gotta, kick it up a notch. But yeah, I mean, even if something like that happens, it's just added motivation. And it's never kind of, I mean, it's obviously a cutthroat league and all that stuff, but even in the midst of like competition amongst guys to make a team or whatever, I never feel like it's really that. I feel like it could be a lot more tense than it is, if that makes sense. But
yeah,
because ultimately it's really you or him, or, it's a numbers game. So it just kind of comes down to, performing your best. And I realize that the only thing you can control is how you perform, but those thoughts always creep into your head in terms of, are they going to keep this many guys or this many of this position? And that's where it gets weird, because it's not like always a one linebacker for one linebacker. It could be they're keeping someone over here to keep someone over here, on and on and on. So, but those are, I'm not smart enough to know all those decisions. So I just have to try to play good football, I guess.
Yeah, as I said in the intro, before you got to Seattle, you played a few different spots around the league with obviously different quarterbacks. Two in particular, I just want to quickly touch on. One is in Matt Stafford, who's obviously played in the big game of the weekend, Super Bowl, in his new home stadium down in LA. It seems almost universal with Matt Stafford that anyone he plays with or has come across, that Aaron Rodgers is always raving about him on his weekly Pat McAfee bits as well, that he's someone who deserves and it's overdue the stage he's going to get this weekend. Is that something you echo on when you were with him, the Lions number 9?
Yeah. I mean, Matt is an awesome dude and one of my favorite guys that I've ever played with, just in terms of how tough he is and how much work he puts in, and finally getting the shot to really make something happen with the Rams. Obviously, I hate him because he plays for the Rams and all that stuff, and I hope they lose and all those good things. But, I think that, it couldn't happen to a better guy. And I don't say that much because I always am like, whatever, I don't care. But he's very deserving of it. And I'm super excited to see him get the opportunity, especially, in their home stadium, which is pretty cool. Obviously, we're all bummed that we're not in the hunt, or, but, things kind of happen like that every once in a while. And I think, he's done a tremendous job kind of stepping in there and really taking off.
Yeah. And the other one is San Francisco, while you were down there, you were played with Colin Kaepernick. Obviously, his career and his abilities have been shunted through somewhat of a prism, depending which side of the R you take on the stance he took. Is that something you saw in him in the locker room, and that you weren't surprised by the stances and the social justice work he's done since 2017 to 2018?
Yeah, I mean, I was just with him for a brief time, and I think, I guess, however you view what he did, I think the biggest thing is, like, for us in America, I mean, that's part of being American, I guess, is having your opinion on things and being able to do, because if we were to make everyone kneel for the anthem or make everyone stand, then we're no better than anybody. I mean, that's what we're about, is, kind of the freedom of choice. And, I think a lot of it internally kind of gets overshadowed. I mean, we were like really bad when I was there, which, I always worry that they'll look back on. I was glad to make the playoffs with the Seahawks, because before, I mean, obviously with the Lions, we're going to be fucking terrible. with the Jets, they were coming off back-to-back AFC championship games. And then I get there and then we were pretty bad too. And then I go to San Fran, same thing, bad again. So I'm worried that, like, when they go back, some analytics guy will be like, there's some variable here that's fucking these things up, and I don't know what it is. So hopefully I've tried to right the ship in Seattle, and I think we've done all right, but it's but I was like a little worried. I'm like, do I need to like burn sage in my house or something? What the fuck is going on? Because I was like, oh man, this is gonna be amazing. We're going to the Super Bowl first year, both of my first teams I went to, and then it didn't go that way. And then finally being able to play in a playoff game with Seattle, I think was awesome. And I think we have a lot of work to do in Seattle, but I think we got the guys to do it and kind of regroup for next year.
On that, a lot of players talk about, once they've bounced around the league for a bit and they end up settling in Seattle, that there's just a different culture. Certainly, they've been a winning team for 10 years and coming off some all-time great performances and records. And I'm sure some of it is a bit of bluster for the media. And I'm so pleased to be here, best fans in the world, blah, blah, blah. But anecdotally, is there anything you can think of that is indicative for us that, we're not in there, that we could get an appreciation of why the Seahawk culture is seemingly or spoken about as being slightly different?
Right. I mean, it truly is. And, I'm not, obviously I'm being paid by them, but I would say this, if I was somewhere else or whatever, but I'm just glad that I got to see Seattle later in my career than early, because I feel like if you were to go the other way, it would be pretty miserable from the places that I've been. And I always like stress it to the young guys, like they have no idea how much better it is than anywhere else. And it's a good thing also, but it's like we had this past season was bad. And, a lot of people are, it was kind of, especially the players, was kind of shocking because it's never been like that. And obviously I've been through complete just shit shows year after year. So I was well accustomed to it, but it's a good thing ultimately that everyone's like, what the fuck is going on? Because it just doesn't happen and the expectation is there. But I think what you were talking about, I think the biggest thing is Pete lets us be ourselves, and like I can be kind of a goof and say weird shit in the locker room or in meetings, and we keep it light. I think football ultimately is usually not that enjoyable of a sport overall. I mean, you have, pain and injuries, and it's people getting cut, and it's pretty ruthless, and it's not like golfing or something. So it's the moments of it being enjoyable, I think, are kind of, when you play well, it's great. When you don't, it's about as bad as it gets. But I think being able to stay consistent, and I think, and it starts, from Pete, in keeping things light, I think is great, because it's tough enough to go through a season, especially the season like we had last year. And if you compound that with just misery, I think it, obviously none of us were happy to be in the situation we were last year, but I think there's times where you can kind of bring, a little light to the situation and kind of try to keep guys engaged. I think Pete is a master of doing that, because I mean, it's enjoyable. I never call it like going into work, because we play fucking football. It's not going. I go into the facility, and he keeps it, an enjoyable from week one of preseason all the way to the end of the season, which is rare, because usually it just is like a death march at some point during the season. And, I don't know how he does it, how he remains so consistent, has so much energy and does all that. But I think that kind of just trickles down to all the coaches and then to all the players. And I think players get it pretty quick. A lot of places you have to be kind of buttoned up and, kind of fit a mold or whatever. But I think in Seattle, we're kind of able to do, not whatever we want, but it's way, and sometimes you wonder initially how it's going to work, because you're like, there's no talking about like rules or this or that, but no one breaks any, or there's no rules to be broken. But it's not like, I think when you give ultimately men the opportunity to act like men, they usually do it. And if they don't, then they're not on the team. So I do like that, because I think a lot of the NFL is kind of like babysitting, and it's like, at a certain point, no matter how talented you are, like you just can't you can't deal with that stuff. And usually those guys weed themselves out of the NFL. So it's, I can't say enough about how enjoyable it is on a daily, just all the goofy shit we do in the locker room. And like we shoot baskets all the time, and Pete's always, messing around, and we got coaches that mess around. I'll mess around, and it's kind of just nonstop action once you get into the facility.
Yeah. After those stops, obviously, when you got to Seattle, it was Ken Norton Jr. was your defensive coordinator, and then obviously, what was that like playing for K&J? Because again, KJ with Mike and Chris and Seahawks man to man just raved about him, about the impact, not as a player, only as a player, but off the field. What was it like to play for someone with his history, with everything that Ken Norton Jr. has done, coaching and playing in the NFL, particularly for yourself with obviously as a linebacker?
Yeah, it was pretty interesting because when I first got to Seattle, I was strictly doing fullback stuff, and then when BBK went down in the preseason, they kind of moved me over. They knew I had played linebacker in the past, obviously, and the funniest thing is being like, if you play offense, this is anywhere. Like if you play offense, you're with the offense, you have very little interaction with the defensive side and vice versa. So I would just see Coach Norton from the outside looking in, and I'm fucking terrified of this guy. Plus I'm like, dad knocked out Ali. I'm like, I don't know what to think about this dude. He's always seemed like he was angry and like straight face and stuff. And then once I went to the defensive side, I realized he's almost always trolling, and he's kind of almost exactly like I am, where he's serious when he needs to be, but he's making jokes all the time, but he never breaks. So you never really know. I mean, I knew, and I would kind of start like laughing when he would say something. And I think that might've blown up his spot a little bit, because usually when he could get away with like saying something without anybody really noticing, I felt like, I mean, I had to learn the playbook, but my second thing was kind of figuring him out. So that was really fun, kind of going back and forth with him. And he's an awesome dude. It was kind of awkward though, because I would make fun of, me and Tyler Lockett do a presentation before away games, and it's kind of free form, and they've been doing it for years. And then Pete asked if I would do it with Lockett this year. So I'm like, okay, I'll do it. And I just ended up making fun of everybody all the time, which really had no bearing on what the presentation was actually supposed to be, but he asked me to do it. So I was like, fuck, I'm going to do it how I want to do it. And Coach Norton notoriously wears like suits that look like I don't know if you guys have ever seen like the 90s, like NBA draft pick suits with like 10 buttons and like, so he'll wear shit like that and think it's going to just, I mean, he makes it look decent. I'll give him that. But I was like, I'm not letting this stand. So I photoshopped his face on a bunch of the NBA draft picks, like suits. And I was like, oh, this is Kenny Norton Jr. going to all the games and all that stuff. And he just stared at me from up in the, like, there wasn't a whole lot of laughter, but then it would be awkward, because then we'd go on the road trips, and you get off the plane, you get on the bus, you get to the hotel, everyone's picking up the room key, and there's just a backup for the elevators. And I would always end up like standing next to him, and I would be looking over at him and see him in these suits, and he would like try not to laugh. And I'm like, fuck. I'm like, I felt bad, but it's like, well, fuck, you're wearing it, and I didn't tell you to wear that. But it would happen like almost on like every single time. I'd end up right next to him, and I'd be looking at him, and he would like smile. I'd smile back at him, and shit. He'd have his Kangol hat on with like a 10-button suit, and it always would crack me up.
You've been very self-deprecating about your performance, which is clearly your way, and get a great amount of humor out of that or whatever. But we had a bit on the pod basically in your first season that Nick Bellore is jerseyable, because you were flashing enough, and I was like, okay, yeah, if we can get hands on a Nick Bellore jersey, we can do it. And there's special team plays, and you have a touchdown for the Seahawks. If I could put a GoPro on your helmet for one play that you've made in Seattle that's like etched on your brain. Can you talk us through it? Like huddle to execution to whacking blitz on the head for celebrating, or like, is there anything particular that stands out as like, yeah, that was my Hall of Fame moment highlight reel for Seattle?
I don't know. I mean, there's just so many. Yeah, you said that self-deprecating. There's just so many to go through. Yeah, it's all kind of for show that I do that. I just have to pretend to be humble all the time. No, I don't know. I do think it was pretty cool when we got Adrian Peterson and getting to block for him because
we were there.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. That's right.
Yeah. Talk us through that one.
So it's kind of a shit show because we obviously don't use a fullback much. And I'm either so hopped up on caffeine and Tylenol that I don't like know what's going on half the game. But I'm like, I'll go into a game and have like 5 or 10 plays that they could possibly call a fullback. But like I usually am screwing around on the sideline, talking shit to somebody or whatever. So I have to kind of pay attention for them to call, like they call it once a game, like call my number to go in my personnel group for the play. And but luckily I knew like when we got around the goal line that we would have a play in there. I think we had a pass play for me to score a touchdown. So selfishly, I wanted to fuck up the block for him so then I could because usually it's like, if the run gets stuffed, then they'll throw the ball to me. So, so I gathered kind of by the, I don't know if you guys have seen this, but I literally had not really met him yet. I mean, he had got there and I play to anybody that is coming in. I mean, he wouldn't know who I was anyways, but it's like, I was for all intents and purposes, a linebacker. So like during the week, I think he got there like on a Thursday or something. I'm like practicing at linebacker. He just sees some random white dude linebacker screwing around on scout team and doing special teams. He's like, I don't know who this fucking guy is. So, and I'm like, I'm not going to go up to him and be like, hey, like he's trying to learn his shit. He doesn't need to fucking hear me yapping or whatever. So I'm like, all right, here we go. And I didn't know anything about his record that he tied or passed. I didn't know any of that stuff, but they called the goal line personnel that I go in at. And I'm like, well, fuck, here we go. And, it was lucky. It worked out great. Like you hear the play and you kind of can envision in your head, but it's so fast. You're like, all right, here we go. And you don't really have time to think. And I've realized that usually plays go better when you're not thinking much. So your brain's pretty much blank. And I'm like, well, shit, here we go. So we run it to the left. And luckily I had like Josh Norman or some little dude out on the edge that I could kind of throw around. I didn't actually have to block anybody substantial, which was nice. But he got in and then I kind of panicked because I was like, fuck, I want him to kind of, because I hate when I didn't know if he was going to dance or do some shit. And I'm like, I hate when like linemen hug the running back when they're in the middle of trying to do some celebration and they just kind of fuck it all up. So I was like, all right, I'll leave him be. And then he turned towards me. I'm like, shit, we're probably going to jump up in the air. I'm like, this isn't going to be good. And then I thought he was going to dap me up. That didn't happen. Then he jumped. So then I jump late. I'm like, fuck, that was bad. So then plus I'm exhausted from one play anyway. So I just bolted that for kickoff.
You were mic'd up that game for the Seahawks. I think your exact words, AP's an asshole. He made me jump. I think I got off a phone book off the ground, I think is what you said. Yeah,
I like to say I play below the rim. So it's, luckily I don't have to go up and get many footballs. But I mean, it was fun and kind of, it was even cooler finding out that he got that record and, it was fun because he's probably like, who the hell was that just came in? Because he was pretty well acquainted with most of the offensive guys. They're like, who the fuck is that guy? So that was kind of fun. And I think it makes it even kind of cooler, the little random tidbits about it, because it's just kind of such a random quick play. And it was cool to do it.
You mentioned obviously talking about a proper legend there. And I think I speak for Stu and say that we discuss quite a lot that obviously we're 5 years removed from like the Super Bowl winning team and the skeleton of that roster, but it still feels like a bit of a hangover from that. And for me, it's largely because most of the players ended up leaving sort of cloak and dagger in the middle of the night, and we never really got a chance to see them off. But one guy obviously that did come back from a true legendary perspective was Beast Mode in 2019. I mean, he just seemed to galvanize a city, a region, and nothing more so than on the sidelines. Like when he scored that touchdown, obviously they fucked up him scoring the touchdown at the last minute, which would have been just, I still think we'd still be celebrating. But what was that like having him come back and like kind of putting a bow on his time in Seattle? Because we haven't really got that with many of the legends that have left.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. He was there for 5 weeks maybe when I was there, and he's like, he leaves a mark. Like, he's one of the coolest dudes I've ever, I mean, I've played with, I'm old now. So like I played with LaDainian Tomlinson with the Jets and like, you know, running back legends like that, but there's no one that even comes close, especially like everything, all encompassing personality, everything as Marshawn. And it was, I mean, I just remember being like, I wanted him to like me so bad. And that's another one where it's like, I've played in the NFL for a long time, but it's not like I'm some household name or he would have any idea who I was. So I remember he was in the running back room the first day he got in there, and he sits down next to me. We have like two-person tables all around. And I'm like, shit, here. I'm like, all right, I gotta be, I don't know what I gotta do, but I gotta be cool. He's like, what's up, man? What's your name? I'm like, Nick, what's yours? And he's like, oh, Marshawn, like as a joke. And he's like, you play? I go, yeah. Do you? And he's like, yeah. And he like daps me up. I'm like, all right, that was a good start. And, but this is kind of a funny little thing. So on Fridays, the rookies, we make them get donuts, and they usually just put them in the running back room. I'll go in there, smash like 3 of them and get out of there before anyone has any idea what's going on. Go to a special teams meeting. There's no one ever in there. So this would have been the first Friday Marshawn was there. And I go up to the running back door and I see the lights are on. I'm like, what the fuck is going on in here? So, and we had signed Robert Turbin too. So, because we had a bunch of injuries at that point. So I cracked the door open, and Chad Morton, our running back coach, is doing a full presentation. All the running backs are in there. And I didn't have to be in there. So I was like, not worried about that, but I opened the door, kind of closed it. I'm like, okay. I'm like, the donuts are in the far corner. I'm like, I think this is where I established my street credibility with Marshawn. So I didn't even think about it. I burst open the door, and I have a good relationship with Chad too, but Marshawn doesn't know. Marshawn thinks I'm supposed to be in the meeting and I come in late or whatever. So I opened the door. I'm like, what? I'm like, just completely interrupt Chad. I'm like, what the fuck is up, guys? And Marshawn just sits back in his chair and looks at me like I'm crazy. And I walk right past Chad, grab 2 donuts, start eating one. I'm like, you guys meeting or something? And Chad like looks at me like pissed off. Marshawn's just looking at me like this, shaking his head. And I look at Marshawn, I go, man, I'm getting the fuck out of here. Walk out, slam the door. Sure enough, like right before practice, he thinks I was like supposed to be in there, and I just told Chad to fuck himself, and I was so he like comes up to me. He's like, that was crazy, man. You were just talking bad to Chad. You just walked out of his fucking meeting. That's amazing. And he like dapped me up. I'm like, yeah, man, that's what I do. I do what I want around here. He's like, it's unbelievable. And I never told him to this day that I had no business being in that meeting anyways. But I was more than fine with him thinking that I'm some fucking badass or something. I'm like, yeah, dude, I didn't need that fucking meeting. And he's like, me neither, man. I wanted to get out too. I was like, dude, just do it next time. He's like, that was amazing. And he was telling everybody, he's like, Nick's fucking crazy, man. He's walking out of the Cavs meeting. I'm like, yeah, man, I'm crazy.
One of those guys from those teams who's still around is Bobby Wagner. And we've had Mike Dugar and Ben Arthur both tell us that he is an elite level shit talker. Is that accurate from your experience with Bobby?
Yeah, I think he's up there. I think I would say that I entering the linebacker room gave him a run for his money, and then also, I mean, he's definitely up there. I think Marshawn was far and away. I mean, like, it is kind of crazy. Like I can't say enough about Marshawn. He was there for like 3 weeks, and I have like 10 funny ass stories from him on him. Like we were playing maybe, I forget where, if it was home or away, but I'm walking on the sideline and I hear like music, like faint music. I'm like, what is that? And I'm looking over and Marshawn's like this and his hat's like this. I'm like, what is he doing? And I just figured he was eating Skittles or whatever. And I was like, I look, he's got his phone in his hat on the sideline playing music. I'm like, what the fuck are you doing, dude? I'm like, you can definitely get a headphone contract if that's what you're worried about. I'm like, you can wear anything. I'm like, why are you? But I guess he always does it that way. He like listen to music and he would just have the phone pressed to his ear, stuck in his beanie during the game. I'm like, what the hell are you doing? But that's just like something that only he would do, that you'd be like, oh, that's completely normal. That's just him being him. But yeah, Bobby, it was fun being with Bobby because he, it's a lot of young guys in the linebacker room. And those guys obviously have to get made fun of just because they're inherently younger than us. So I feel like Bobby and I made a good team of talking shit in the linebacker room and then more broadly in the defensive meeting room. So that was a fun experience this year. And obviously, besides how great he is as a player and all that stuff, to see that is firsthand was really cool.
There's obviously something about the Seahawk fullback position and niche social media, videos and film, because you probably are aware of the Real Mike Rob report that was legendary kind of in the formative years of Russell Wilson and this Seahawk team's career. And then you say it was a bad year last year, but you genuinely brightened a lot of our weeks with the Between Two Bellores thing. Firstly, how did that come about? And secondly, your relationship with DK has really blossomed on that. Is it difficult to have respect for a guy that wants to have ranch dressing with calamari?
Yeah, well, first we have to address that. I don't know. But the funniest thing about the ranch and calamari, I mean, it is absurd.
It's outrageous. It's outrageous.
Not a thing. But but what I laughed is like, I think he tweeted after that it's like, it's crazy how many people don't like ranch. It's like saying not serving ice cream with pizza is a crime, and then people saying that's absurd and being like, it's crazy how many people don't like pizza. It's like, it doesn't like compute. So that was absurd. We moved past that, I think, but it was fun doing it. The media team had the idea, and I always loved Between Two Ferns with Zach Galifianakis. It's like one of my favorite things, and I enjoy I try never to actually laugh at the stuff. And it was really fun doing that. It was kind of interesting because DK's episode is the only one that I sort of prepped for. The other three we did back to back to back, just on a random day, and I kind of just winged it. So it was kind of interesting to see which one turned out better. And it was like, I don't know, it's fun. I mean, I make fun of guys all the time anyways, and they make fun of me. So it was kind of like, we might as well do it. It would be fun to do it outside of the, being employed and, in the realm of the Seahawks, because there's a lot of good ones that didn't quite make it, and probably for good reason, but it's fun too. And it made me feel really old. It's like none of those guys had ever seen any of those Between Two Ferns. And I realized that I'm like, even though I'm, I'm 32, but even if there's a 5-year age gap, the stuff that those guys haven't seen that I've seen is crazy. So it was kind of funny because a lot of the guys had no idea what it was supposed to be like and how I was going to act. So it was genuine, with Diggs and Dixon and Barton, they had no idea how that. I think Dixon kind of knows a little bit because he's kind of into comedy stuff like I am, but he those guys really didn't know how it was supposed to kind of transpire. And I think even like some of the people that watched it probably have no idea. They're like, that was painfully awkward. That's what I was going for. But yeah, the DK one was fun. And I was worried too, because it's like, sometimes you need to riff off of what they say. And sometimes it works better if they just completely shut down, which he did a couple of times. So it was fun to see how they kind of turned out between the two. But yeah, it was fun. Hopefully kind of keep doing those. I have to kind of think of who else I would have on there. I mean, there'd be so many good. I mean, it'd be hilarious to have like Pete or Russ on there, but I also want to keep my job. So I gotta, that's what I was remembering when I was like thinking about jokes and stuff. It's like, well, fuck, I'm not getting paid to do this. And it's like, I really gain nothing from doing this. So I got to kind of tread lightly here, because it's like, I enjoy it, but it's like, I don't want to, lose my job because of some joke I made to one of the guys. But it was fun. Hopefully, keep doing it.
Yeah, it as Adam said, it was one of the bright spots of the week during some of the down weeks for Seahawks this year. As I said, your mic talked that 49ers game, and in a clip of it, I think you say to Colby that the 49ers fans do not like Nick Bellore. Why?
I mean, I don't know. I went in and played like a little bit of linebacker, and I was like, I did okay. We were shitty. It was a perfect storm. And plus I was backing up Navarro Bowman, who's like a legend there. So it was like, they're not going to fucking like me no matter what I do. So it's like, but also it's like, it is funny, like all the stuff that they aired on the mic'd up that I was like, I don't know. Like, there was much worse stuff that I'm sure that doesn't get aired, but it's like, obviously they have great fans too. And there's people that like me there, but I was like, no matter what I do, they won't like me. So whatever. But, I'm in Seattle now. So
yeah. And a lot happened in that game. Obviously the fake punt kind of woke the entire stadium up. Have your hamstrings recovered from keeping up with Travis?
Yeah, I barely. That was like the most overspeed trading I've ever done. I don't know how I managed to semi look like I was running with him, because Travis is a really weird, like I don't know what his deal is, but he'll walk around on the sideline like he's torn both of his legs or they've been blown off or something, and then he'll go out there and then just run like the fastest you've ever seen and most powerful and all that stuff. So he kind of, I don't know if he's like kind of doing a rope-a-dope or something, but I'm like, he'll walk around, we're like, is Travis hurt? And then he'll go out and do that. So to answer your question, barely. Their returner basically like hit me in the head when I tried to block him. And I'm 32, so I'm on borrowed time anyways. So I landed awkwardly and I was like, oh fuck. And then I just saw Homer get past me. I'm like, well, it worked. It wasn't pretty, but that was a pretty cool play. I don't know that I've ever seen a fake punt go that far for a touchdown. It's got to be close to, I can't imagine there's one much longer than that, but that was a pretty cool, because that was early in the game too, if I remember. And it was, what a fun game that was. Yeah.
But also there's something with the mentality of you guys on special teams, because that game started with an ambulance on the field when one of their guys got injured. And then 20 seconds after the ambulance is off the field, you guys are just running into each other again. What is that? Like, how do you just put like adrenaline fueled blinkers on, or?
It's tough. Obviously, you never want to see anything like that happen. We were glad that he's all right. It's something you maybe try not to think about. The other one that was really bad is, when Quandre went down, and it's just like, it's just sickening. But unfortunately, it's part of the game. I think what was kind of a wild one was, and I was, telling my wife this, is the year before when we had no fans. If you guys were to be at the game, just you two sitting in the stands with no fans and no noise and hearing like what goes on, I told my wife, I'm like, there's no way you would let me play football if you heard the just complete gunshots that happen every single play. And that was even wild for me because you don't really, I mean, it's bizarre. It's like hearing stuff you've never heard before because it's always so loud, especially at home. But just like how violent some of the collisions are. I mean, it's crazy to hear firsthand. And I'll never forget that. I mean, like the COVID year where no one was at the games was pretty crazy because it was just like between that and then how silent it would be when I'm trying to think about like little stuff, like when we played the Patriots early in the year and Cam Newton had the ball basically to win the game and it's just dead silent in there. And then we stop them. And then it's all you can hear is just us screaming. It was just, the whole thing was kind of crazy and surreal almost because it was like you were playing like a scrimmage or something in high school or it was nuts. And it was like those, I didn't mind it, but then those times like that where you know how loud it would be, it was kind of crazy to think about. Like if the fans were here right now, this would be absolutely absurd. But like with the injuries and all that stuff, it's, you know, you kind of you think you get numb to it and then, you know, it happens and you're like, fuck that, you know, but you know, that's kind of the life we chose, I guess. So it's part of the game, I suppose.
When I was doing my research and found out the O'Kelly's picture, I also stumbled across a tweet that 23-year-old Nick Bellore made on the 4th of April, 2013. And it said, so this is April. It said, is it football season yet? With about 4 exclamation marks. Something tells me that 32-year-old Nick Bellore on the 4th of August isn't going to be that excited for football season to come back around. No,
absolutely not. I don't know. I mean, I probably thought that the coaches gauged playing time on how excited you seem enough. Yeah, so that's embarrassing. I don't know why I would ever say anything like that because it's kind of this is kind of a funny thing. So like when I would have tweeted that, it reminds me of like when we have OTAs in the offseason and the first like 3 weeks. Like we're there for like 2 hours a day. It's just glorified babysitting really. And young guys will be there till like 6 at night. And it's like, I used to be that guy because you think like, if I, you know, watch, you know, this and this, and then go in the cold tub and the hot tub and do this and this, I'll definitely be a starter, you know, or whatever, or I'll definitely make the team. And it's like, the sentiment is there. Like it, you know, you got to work hard and all that stuff. And I keep pretty strict like training hours when I'm home working out, but it's like some guys are different, but for me, it's like, I'm either training or it's football and like nowhere in between. And like when I train very hard right now, but I don't like think of like football. I'm just trying to like get as fast and as strong as I can in the time that we have. And then it starts. But for us, like a good line of demarcation would be like the 4th of July. Once the 4th of July hits, depression sets in for training camp. And you're like, oh, fuck, here we go. It's just like this like, I don't know. It's like this speeding train that you have to hop on and then hop off. So it's obviously like a love-hate thing. I mean, I love playing football and it's amazing, but that initial, like, I don't know, August is always awful. So I always say like, when I'm done with football, that'll be amazing because every August since I was 10 years old has been absolute fucking misery, hot weather, running and getting in condition and all this stuff. So I will enjoy that when I'm done, but not for a couple of years here. But it's, yeah, I don't know why I would ever tweet anything like that because I sure as fuck didn't mean it. Even back then, I was like, I mean, I'm just trying to get in someone's good graces there. So that's embarrassing.
I was in 2022 sports and social media with 24-hour news cycles everywhere. It's a bit of a dilutive of things, but you seem to be someone who embraces that when you have players who vanity search their own names and things, but you post photoshops of both teams losing. You post OnlyFans comments to DK Metcalf. Obviously, you got between two Bellores as well. Is that just something that is a part of you that you can enjoy it and like, or while others do get in trouble with it, and like who they unfollow or follow
Yeah, I mean, I think all of it's kind of like stupid. So I like to try to make fun of it wherever I can. And there's a lot of stuff that are saved in my drafts that I wish I could post, but I'm like, I gotta. But yeah, I mean, I love making fun of, like, DK will just tweet preposterous shit, and I make fun of Quandre all the time because he always is like, he'll like live tweet games, and I'll always screenshot. I'll be like, someone needs to take his phone away from him during these games, and it's not even like he's drunk either. He's just tweeting, and I'm like, no one cares what. But no, if I think of something funny, I'm always sending Photoshops to guys on the team, and we have like a couple of group chats going. So that's always fun. But then, if I think it's, semi-street legal, I'll put it on Twitter. And some of the guys just bring it on themselves. I mean, the shit that DK says, I'm like, I'm going to make fun of him. And then the OnlyFans thing, I was pretty happy with myself on that tweet just because of the wordplay of it. I'm like, that's, I was happy with how that one turned out, but he's a good sport, and we like always joke all the time about that. And yeah, no, it's fun, and I don't take it too serious. I just use it like most people do, just to creep on other people and make fun of them behind their back. That's kind of my favorite thing with it. You know what I mean?
I'm conscious of your time, so last quick one from me. I mentioned Nick Bellore being jerseyable. The one issue that I've got is that number 44. I mean, this is a 12-year veteran we're talking about now. Special teams captain. We got, we've discussed the Hall of Fame real plays. We're blowing up people for Travis Homer, Adrian Peterson. Someone's got to be giving you one of these elite numbers for, you can have any number you want now. I think it's time to, upgrade ourselves.
I know. I try not to. I get so annoyed at the young guys. Like we had a practice squad player this year, like the day before the game, asked to change his number, and the equipment guys are like, what the fuck are you talking about? And I was just thinking to myself, like, how I'm like, I wouldn't do that now. I wouldn't do that like if I was anybody on a team. And it's like, I guess that's the one thing that's remained consistent is like, some guys are like super weird about their numbers. I've like the amount of money guys pay for numbers, and like, even, I mean, well, that you guys are like this. So when I played for the Jets, I was a rookie, and I was driving like some shitty, it was an old Ford Explorer. And one of the guys had I'll leave names out just for tax purposes. This is probably best. But we had a D end the year before, a famous D end, wanted his number. He was going to play for 1 year and retire. And there was another guy that had that number who was like a 10-year vet with the Jets. He's like, I want your number for the year. I'm going to give you an F-150 pickup truck loaded and $50,000 or something like that. And the guy's like, well, sure. The truck had changed hands like 4 times. And I was like, I need to get a new car. But I was like mortified to spend money. I mean, I think I'm going to get cut every week. I have a bad game. I'm like, I'm fucking gone. So I can't be spending any money. And I asked the guy whose truck it was. I'm like, yeah, that truck's sick. He's like, yeah. And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, you want it? I'm like, he sold it to me for $30,000, which is probably like, it was 10 times more money than I'd ever spent on anything. And but it was probably worth triple that at the time. And I'm like, he's like, the only thing is though, I don't want you to pay me all at once because I don't want my wife to see all that money come into the account. So I want you to pay me $5,000 every 6 months. I'm like, all right, sold. I get the car. So I got this car a year later after a guy had given it to a guy brand new. It had like 5,000 miles on it for the guy's number. And it had changed hands in the locker room. The title hadn't even been like really signed over. So I had all these issues getting it like legally mine because it was like 4 people removed and it just had been passed in the locker room. And I was like, I drove it for 100,000 miles and traded it in for more than I bought it for. That was like, it was this weird locker room, like back alley dealing that I did. And I was like, this is so crazy that people do that over numbers. But I will say, I would consider like, if I kind of had an idea that some like huge free agent was going to come into town, I would try to poach their number before they get there. But ultimately, like, I don't give a shit like what number I wear. But some guys are very superstitious. I would say that I'm superstitious that I'm not superstitious, if that makes sense. So I'm like, I'll just, whatever number they give me, I'll, because I was like, this is another thing with the Jets is Rex Ryan was a coach, and he called me, and he probably thought, I don't know why he thought I'd be like a guy that like really cared what number. He's like, you come here, you can wear whatever number you want. I'm like, can I wear 43? Because I was that was my college number. He goes, yeah. So I get there and they put me in 43. And then I realized during the season, that was like preseason. Once the season started, I had to be in a 50s number. So he kind of just like swindled me into that jersey. But yeah, some guys take it very seriously, and they, like guys will be like, can I change numbers? And that's like a logistical nightmare for the equipment guys. And then you compound that if it's like a famous dude and he's got all these jerseys and all that shit. So that's a whole nother thing. But we've talked about it, but I don't know that I would ever change it. But yeah, 44, it could be worse, but it could be definitely better, I would say.
Yeah. We have a Patreon for this podcast. We had a few of our guys send in some questions. Dan wants to know if you prefer to be the ball carrier or the tackler in the Oklahoma drill.
Ooh, definitely the tackler. I had a couple practices where I had to play running back in camp just because we had nobody there. And it's like, it's fucking awful getting hit when you're holding the ball. It's hard to hold onto the ball when you get hit. And I had no idea what I'm doing. So definitely tackling, I would say.
And also, if you see yourself retiring as a Seahawk.
Yeah, I would love. I don't really want to go anywhere else. It doesn't get better.
Nick wants to know who's more athletic, you or DeKalin Metcalf.
That's tough. You got to give it to him, I suppose. I've always wondered. I'm a pretty awful athlete, all things considered, especially in that world. I'd say, like, if you get me in a bar, I'm probably top tier athlete compared to most guys, but you get into the NFL locker room, I'm bottom of the totem pole.
And Dave, obviously you spent a lot of time, I'm guessing, with Michael Dixon, who's Australian, Aussie rules and everything, but has he taught you about cricket yet, which obviously is a big sport over here as well?
Yeah, no, I haven't. I should. I try to, because I played with a couple of rugby guys through the years. With the Jets, it was Hayden Smith, and he played for Saracens. I think they're in, yeah. So I don't think he's playing anymore, but I kind of got accustomed to that. And then you realize how big of a sport that is overseas, and it's starting to get popular in the States. But like, we would go out in New York and there'd be guys that recognize them from rugby, not from playing football. And it's pretty crazy in that respect. But no cricket talk yet. Yeah, no, it was, he's I always try to, because he played Aussie rules football or something like that too.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
That is mental.
It's absolutely insane.
Yeah, that's I don't think I could go for that. I used to think, like, if my football career got cut short, I'd not that, but like want to play rugby overseas, but that ship sailed, I think.
Last quick one from me. So we try and make this a bit of a chainmail situation. And is there we always try and get our guest to get us our next guest, maybe from the team, someone that we can chop out with. Is there anyone that you can think of on the current team that we might be able to snare for an hour, expand their international audience to 6 more people over in the UK on a good day?
I mean,
you have to help us. You have to help us get them as well.
I know. I'm trying to think where my
your sphere of influence.
Exactly. I mean, I'll do my best on Quandre. He loves hearing himself talk, so that he'll be. But yeah, no, it's and I was gonna joke with you guys. I was a little nervous getting on with you guys, because I remember my wife and I we're in London and then went to Italy a couple of years ago. And I could understand guys in the Italian airports 10 times better than Heathrow. I was like, fuck, I hope I can pick up what these guys are putting down, because I remember being in Heathrow. I'm like, what the fuck did that guy just, like it was going through security or whatever.
Well, I still can't understand the word that Stuart says. So that's pretty impressive if you managed to get through all of that. Yeah,
Stuart, you have your moments, but I got most of it. I was getting it. But yeah, I always tell people that. I'm like, yeah, I understood gibberish Italian way better than whatever was spoken. So.
We had Jeff Reinbold, who is a special teams coach up in the CFL last week, and we asked him, obviously, special teams. The one thing he wanted us to say to you is next time you see Mo Kelly is to give him a big hug from Jeff Reinbold, who played for him, I think, in Edmonton in like the mid-90s. I
will. Mo's the man. He's like the guy in the shadows for the organization that kind of does everything, but you don't. If you were to ask me what he does, I'm like, I don't really know, but he kind of has his hand in everything with the Seahawks. He's a great dude.
Awesome. Obviously, most people listening probably already do follow you on social media and everything, but if there are a few who don't and are missing out on obviously everything, a lot of the stuff we've talked about, where can people find you during the off season as you prepare for July 4th?
Yeah, no, the social media wise, you can find me in the replies of like Quandre and DK making fun of them. I don't do a whole lot on Instagram. I'll post a picture of my son every once in a while now that he's kind of running around and he's a terrorist. So, but besides that, I'm pretty low key and, yeah, I'll try to fire one off at the Super Bowl. That's funny. I got to think of something, but yeah, that's I just little things here and there just to let people know I'm still there.
Yeah, but like we keep saying, we massively appreciate you taking the time to jump on with us too. Obviously, time to unwind and not talk to two idiots like myself and Adam. So yeah, we do massively appreciate you jumping on. If people want to get involved, you can patreon.com/the Pedestrian Podcast, Podbean, Spotify, iTunes, and all the usual means and methods to listen and get in touch and get involved. Until next time, though, this has been the Pedestrian Podcast.
Go Hawks.
Thanks, guys.
No, thank you, man. That was really good fun.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys having me. Let me know if you want to do it again sometime. I'll talk to